Baby, just kidding. It is Illuminostic, laying in bed. Look at my frizzy hair. I don't want to hear about it. We have no mirrors here in the Amazon. I'm not kidding. We have no mirrors in our house. And also, I went to visit a friend of ours in town today, and it turns out he has artisanal beer. So, Illuminostic had a few of those. And Illuminostic is still sick, which is sad because Illuminostic had chronic illness for many years, and then Illuminostic drank ayahuasca, and the chronic illness went away, but within 48 hours, Illuminostic got sick. So, so I am here though tonight because it had been far too long since our last live stream to talk about one of my most favorite fundamental properties of the universe, which in 2022 happens to be one of the most divisive. Um, I don't even know what to say about it. Gender. Apparently, there are actually like 652 genders. Um, but seriously, you guys, gender to me is one way of saying dark and light. And this is um, one of the levels of expression of the antinomies, the interplay of which gives rise to the rest of the universe. And so it's actually one of the last chapters in the Kybalion. We're getting very near to the end. And I want to thank all of you guys that have signed up for our retreat. Well, I am here now. This is our this is the Master's Chambers. We broke ground on the Maloka today. So this is getting realer and realer. Our first, our investor, the person that lent us the money. Listen to this, you guys. You know how I'm always talking about how if you're really following your highest path, the universe will just, make the way plain for you. I made a video. This lady, okay, let me back up a little bit. The day before this lady contacted us that owns the property, I said to my partner, man, I wish we could just go back to Miss Hawaii and take over that property somehow. But there was no way, right? Literally the next day, she contacts us and says, "Hey, I need someone to take over the property." And last time we were just, what do you call it, like house sitting. But this time I need someone to actually pay the lease. And I said, okay, well, let me make a video and see if I can raise the amount of the lease, which was no small sum. 130 views, raised almost all of it. So here we are in the Master's Chambers. The Napo River, one of the biggest tributaries of the Amazon, in the backyard. Saw Lighter Monkey today. I'd missed him. It had been about a year. I was sad though. I went to go and check our ayahuasca vine, and the local Quechua people have harvested it. But there are plenty more out there. So it was a little bit sad though, because I had imagined all the people from the retreat coming and cutting it with me and going to prepare the medicine with myself and Mama Celia, and it was gone. But they didn't kill it. They did harvest it properly. Um, so yeah. And aside from plant medicine, the other subject of our retreat is Hermetic magic. Mostly the LPRP and the middle pillar. But some mornings we'll sit down with the Book of the Law or the Book of Lies or the Kybalion, and we will get our heads set in that way. And it's going to be fucking amazing. It's amazing to be here every day, you know. Uh, the jungle never ceases to amaze. Earlier, I was thinking the only thing we're missing is a dog. And my partner's favorite type of dog, other than a pit bull, is Doberman Pinscher. So I'm sitting on the toilet over there, and suddenly there's a Doberman Pinscher like nose to fucking eyeball with me. Never seen this dog before in my life, right? I'm sitting on the toilet, I left the door open. Doberman Pinscher, like, and I'm like, plunk, plunk. Hey, thanks. I needed help. I was feeling a bit congested. It's still here, too. I don't know where the fuck it came from. Um, yep. So, okay, so let's dive in here. The Kybalion. Um, gender. Gender isn't everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principle. Gender manifests on all planes. And this is something that's easy for us to take for granted. Um, and it's a lot to unpack. But one of my most profound spiritual experiences was it had everything to do with this. And it actually had everything to do with the fucking Kybalion. What a synchronicity, right? No surprise there. Um, the way that I found this book is that one day I was laying in bed reading Gems from the Equinox, Aleister Crowley's collection. Well, no, it was Israel Reggerty, who was Aleister Crowley's secretary, who had compiled like a greatest hits from Crowley's periodical called the Equinox. So Gems from the Equinox, and he had a list of the books that he insisted his students read, and the Kybalion was on that list. So I was perusing this list, and I saw the Kybalion, and I said to my girlfriend, "We should go and find this book somewhere." And when I tell you guys that I did not use the internet very much until very recently, I'm not. I mean, it doesn't even make you look cool. I don't even know. I mean, I'm not. Okay, Charles, if you're coming, you better hurry up though, dude, and let me know what you're trying to do. Um, we do want to meet you. That's one of the coolest things about this retreat, by the way. I'm meeting a lot of our longtime patrons. Okay, so I told my girlfriend, I would like to find this book, The Kybalion. I didn't use the internet a lot. It didn't even occur to me to look on Amazon. So, Charles, it's not that hard, bro. Um, so so we leave the next day to go to the beach on a vacation, a much needed vacation to the town of Mendocino, which has year-round population max of 300 people. So we drive out to Mendocino and we go to this little used bookstore. Um, and it's got maybe 75 books in the entire building. And, you know, the chances of finding an 81-year-old mint condition copy of the Kybalion seem a little bit fucking slim, right? This is it. Not even kidding. 81 years old. Look at the pages. Like, it looks like it's never been opened. Let's see what they charge me for it. 15, or is that, yeah, $15. So we go upstairs, and almost immediately she's like, "Isn't this the book you're looking for?" And she pulls this little blue book out and hands it to me. And I'm like, looking around for the secret society that is following me around and planning shit. Because what the fuck, right? So we go to the hotel room, and I had been really obsessed with, not obsessed with, but I had noticed that there were some irregularities with the Lucifer myth and how people seem to perceive it and how I was coming to understand it through my own sort of intuitive journey. And so the acid started to kick in, and you guys, we were right on the edge of this like 500-foot cliff on the North California coast. It was incredible beyond description, right? Like, wow. Um, so So the acid starts to kick in. I see the book on the counter, and I pick the book up, and I'm like, what does Lucifer have to do with all this? And I flip it open, and I'm looking at the word Lucifer, the name, and it says Lucifer and the other fallen angels have some reality to them, as any good occultist knows. Later I checked, it is the only place in the book where the name Lucifer occurs. So she goes and vomits because that was just too much for her, I guess. And I go out into the hot tub and I'm laying there and we start arguing. And I realize very quickly that we're not speaking from our personal point of view. We're speaking to each other from the point of view of the absolute masculine and the absolute feminine. And I remember saying, her saying to me, "You'll never understand me." And I'm like, that's the fucking point. Because the masculine is the point, sort of. And it's like trying to decode and understand and, you know, make sense of the mystery and the darkness and the waters and the feminine, right? So at some point we got stuck in this argument, and I grabbed the book and flipped it open to gender, right? And that's literally what we were talking about. So I just relayed that. I know I've spoken about it before in these Kybalion videos, but this particular chapter has a lot of sentimental value, I guess, for me, because it was one of the first times that the universe really presented the universal mind to me in a way that I really couldn't get around, because I'm very analytical, I'm very critical, and I'm looking for truth. I'm not looking for comforting delusions, right? So, you know, if you present something to me, I'll tear it to the ground, not out of malice, but just because that's what a philosopher should be trying to do with every idea. Um, you know, combining the negative and the positive is the alchemical process from which the third thing arises, right? And that third thing is the higher expression. So, yeah, and it happened again the first time my partner downstairs, my child and I had San Pedro together. We started speaking to each other again from the point of view of the absolute masculine and the absolute feminine. Um, So let's dive in. The great seventh Hermetic principle. Oh, wait, we got to stop right there. There are 7 viewers too. Uh, um, the seventh is the number of destruction, because the eighth is the birth of the new, of the higher. Now, no, it went to 6. Um, I thought we were going to go to 8 right on time. Um, but the octave in music, where you come to the 1 again, but in a higher place. Um, or the end of the week, 7 days in the week. Yeah, it was 8 for a second, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 8. Right on time. That was perfect. And that's the way. Watch my video tomorrow, because I have a lot of those stories from the last week where everything just harmonizes in unbelievable ways right on time. You got to be physically healthy as well as spiritually mature in order to get there. Come see me here and I will tell you how I did it. Um, so the great seventh Hermetic principle, the principle of gender, embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything, that the masculine and feminine principles are ever present and active in all phases of phenomena on each and every plane of life. At this point, we think it well to call your attention to the fact that gender in its Hermetic sense and sex in the ordinarily accepted use of the term are not the same. The word gender is derived from the Latin root meaning to beget, to procreate, to generate, to create, to produce. A moment's consideration will show you that the word has a much broader and more general meaning than the term sex, the latter referring to the physical distinctions between male and female living things. Sex is merely a manifestation of gender on a certain plane of the great physical plane, the plane of organic life. We wish to impress this distinction upon your minds for the reason that certain writers, who have acquired a smattering of the Hermetic philosophy, have sought to identify the seventh Hermetic principle with wild and fanciful and often reprehensible theories and teachings regarding sex. The office of gender is solely that of creating, producing, generating, etc., and its manifestations are visible on every plane of phenomena. It is somewhat difficult to produce proofs of this along scientific lines, for the reason that science has not as yet recognized this principle as of universal application, but still some proofs are forthcoming from scientific sources. In the first place, we find a direct manifestation of the principle of gender among the corpuscles, ions or electrons, which constitute the basis of matter as science now knows the latter, and which by forming certain combinations form the atom, which until lately was regarded as final and invisible. And so, again, this brings us to the fundamental interaction of the antinomies that give rise to everything: the negative and the positive, the dark and the light, space. What's up, Tommy? And matter, uh, possibility, and the collapse of that probability wave into an actuality. So we're using the terms gender here very loosely to actually describe a plethora of phenomenal manifestations. The latest word of science is that the atom is composed of a multitude of corpuscles. I don't know what he means by that. Electrons or ions, the various names being applied by different authorities, revolving around each other and vibrating at a high degree of intensity. But the accompanying statement is made that the formation of the atom is really due to the clustering of negative corpuscles around a positive one. The positive corpuscles seeming to exert a certain influence upon the negative, causing the latter to assume certain combinations and thus create or generate an atom. This is in line with the most ancient Hermetic teachings, which have always identified the masculine principle of gender with the positive and the feminine with the negative poles of electricity. Now, a word at this point regarding this identification. The mind has formed an entirely erroneous impression regarding the quality of the so-called negative pole of electrified or magnetized matter. The terms positive and negative are very wrongly applied to this phenomenon of science. The word positive means something real and strong as compared with the negative unreality or weakness. Nothing is further from the real facts of electrical phenomena. The so-called negative pole of the battery is really the pole in which the generation or production of new forms and energies is manifested. There is nothing negative about it. The best scientific authorities now use the word cathode in place of negative. The word cathode coming from the Greek root meaning descent, the path of generation. From the cathode pole emerged the swarm of electrons or corpuscles. From the same pole emerged those wonderful rays which have revolutionized scientific conceptions during the past decade. The cathode pole is the mother of all the strange phenomena which have rendered useless the old textbooks, and which have caused many long accepted theories to be relegated to the scrap pile of scientific speculation. The cathode or negative pole is the mother principle or electrical phenomena, and of the finest forms of matter as yet known to science. So you see, we are justified in refusing to use the term negative in our consideration of the subject and insisting upon substituting the word feminine for the old term. The facts of the case bear us out in this without taking the Hermetic teachings into consideration. And so we shall use the word feminine in the place of negative in speaking of that pole of activity. Scientific teachings are that the creative corpuscles or electrons are feminine. Science says they are composed of negative electricity. We say they are composed of feminine energy. A feminine corpuscle becomes detached from, or rather leaves, a masculine corpuscle and starts on a new career. It actively seeks a union with a masculine corpuscle, being urged thereto by the natural impulse to create new forms of matter or energy. One writer goes so far as to use the term, it at once seeks of its own volition a union. This detachment and uniting form the basis of the greater part of the activities of the chemical world. One way to say this is that um, division is necessary for the sake of union. Um, when the feminine corpuscle unites with the masculine corpuscle, a certain progress is begun. This is the basis of all alchemy. The idea that from two things a third thing of a higher nature emerges is evident every time a child is born, assuming that the parents are competent enough at least to allow the child to do what it naturally does without suppression. It doesn't even require that the parents are competent, to perform some sort of task. All they really need to do is stay the fuck out of the way. And the child will evolve beyond them, beyond their conceptions of even what is possible. The feminine particles vibrate rapidly under the influence of the masculine energy, and the circle rapidly around the latter. The result is the birth of a new atom. This new atom is really composed of a union of the masculine and feminine electrons or corpuscles, and when the union is formed, the atom is a separate thing, having certain properties, but no longer manifesting the property of free electricity. The process of detachment or separation of the feminine electrons is called ionization. These electrons or corpuscles are the most active workers in nature's field. Arising from their unions or combinations manifest the varied phenomena of light, heat, electricity, magnetism, attraction, repulsion, chemical affinity, and the reverse and similar phenomena. And all this arises from the operation of the principle of gender on the plane of energy. I think when he says corpuscles or even electrons, what he actually means is, are you kidding me? Total brain fart. Particle. Sorry, there we go. Particles. It just means particle. The part of the masculine's principle seems to be that of directing a certain inherent energy toward the feminine principle and then starting into activity the creative processes. But the feminine principle is the one always doing the active creative work, and this is so on all planes, and yet each principle is incapable of operative energy without the assistance of the other. In some of the forms of life, the two principles are combined in one organism. For that matter, everything in the organic world manifests both genders. There is always the masculine present in the feminine, and the feminine present in the masculine. The Hermetic teachings include much regarding the operation of the two principles of gender and the production and manifestation of various forms of energy, etc., but we do not deem it expedient to go into detail regarding the same at this point, because we are unable to back up the same with scientific proof, for the reason that science has not yet as yet progressed thus far. But the example we have given you of the phenomena of the electrons or corpuscles will show you that science is on the right path, and will also give you a general idea of the underlying principles. And it is also fair to say that, as Aleister Crowley once wrote, that science is always discovering old scraps of magical wisdom and making a great fuss about its cleverness. This is something that has repeated throughout history, um, and one of the most obnoxious habits, I think, of modern physics is that when they realize they've done this, they will actually um, they'll find new language to sort of try to cloak the fact that they have, for example, the aether. For a long time, science said, the aether is just this stupid, uh, ancient idea that has no basis in reality. And then they said, what we actually have is all these particles. And then recently they said, okay, well, these particles don't actually exist. They're more like knots in this substance that permeates all of the universe, which is what? The aether. So, and there's a talk that I found recently on YouTube where they're going into great detail about all of this in the same hall where the idea of the aether was presented by the guy that the hall is named after, and this talk was only given a few years ago. I apologize that I can't recall all the details, but this is typical of our scientific institutions. And the fact that I can make this observation in 2021 or 2022, and Aleister Crowley had noticed it in 1840 fucking whatever, um, is also revelatory. Revelatory, yeah, okay. Um, Each year will bring other facts to corroborate the correctness of the Hermetic principle of gender. It will be found that gender is in constant operation and manifestation in the field of inorganic matter and in the field of energy or force. Electricity is now generally regarded as the something into which all other forms of energy seem to melt or dissolve. The electrical theory of the universe is the latest scientific doctrine and is growing rapidly in popularity and generality of acceptance. And it thus follows that if we are able to discover in the phenomena of electricity, even at the very root and source of its manifestations, a clear and unmistakable evidence of the presence of gender and its activities, we are justified in asking you to believe that science at last has offered proofs of the existence and all universal phenomena of that great Hermetic principle, the principle of gender. It is not necessary to take up your time with the well-known phenomena of the attraction and repulsion of the atoms, chemical affinity, love and hate, atomic particles, the attraction or cohesion between the molecules of matter. These facts are well known and need no comment from us. But have you ever considered that all of these things are manifestations of the gender principle? Can you not see that the phenomena is on all fours, and that of the corpuscles or electrons? And more than this, can you not see the reasonableness of the Hermetic teachings which assert that the very law of gravitation, that strange attraction by reason of which all particles and bodies of matter in the universe tend toward each other, is but another manifestation of the principle of gender, which operates in the direction of attracting the masculine to the feminine energies and vice versa? We cannot offer you scientific proof of this at the time, but examine the phenomena in the light of the Hermetic teachings on the subject and see if you have not a better working hypothesis than any offered by physical science. Submit all physical phenomena to the test, and you will discern the principle of gender ever in evidence. Let us now pass on to a consideration of the operation of the principle of the mental plane. Many interesting features are there awaiting examination. It is true, and it's also one of the last chapters of the Kybalion. We're almost done with it, and we are going to return to Bill. Man, I can't remember his name, but the mystery school series that I've been doing commentary on, that is going to continue. We are settled into a place now. We are no longer traveling around South America, so I'll get back to work. The commentary on the Book of Law will continue. Um, the retreat, you guys, holy shit. Today I was able to go back to town. We saw some of the Warani people that we had lived with. Lighter Monkey and his troop, crawling around my shoulders again. My ayahuasca vine was harvested, but there are plenty more out there in the jungle. The Napo River, I can hear it flowing behind us. And one of the most powerful things that I'm going to demonstrate with this retreat is that there really is no difference in the practices of the Western occult tradition and the mystery schools and the shamanic practices. They're all based on a fundamental understanding of the same thing. And the effect of the application of that knowledge is liberation of the individual soul from the constraints imposed upon it by the matrix mind. I have proved it with my life. Even sick to the point of being disabled, I'm still able to transcend the matrix trap. So, you know, if you want to see what that is all about and you need help applying it to your own life, Ecuador's not that far from wherever you live. So do me a favor, hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon where you can join our secret streams. The next one is degree 28 of the Freemasons, Night of the Brazen Serpent. We're going to go into detail about what it all means. Why is there a serpent in the sun? The guy from Soundgarden that hung itself, how did he know that in the sun lies a snake? You got to become a patron if you want to know what he meant, if you don't already. So, good night, guys. I will see you again soon. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Try not to be quite so drunk next time. Just kidding. I've only had like 3. But when we went to town today to expand upon this idea of synchronicity, we happen to know the only distributor of like real bacon, salami, all of these things that you cannot get in Ecuador. And our friend, who is an amazing person, if you know the interviewer Nardwar, he's just like him. It's real. It's not an act. It's how he is all the time. Um, so he had just opened this business. We went down there to see him, and their offerings are very limited and not what they could be. And we happen to know the only people in Ecuador, he clearly had never heard of them, that could just make his business so much more successful. And also all these gringos that are here that can't get all this stuff. Like, it's just, the universe is made of symmetry, right? And all you have to do is decondition yourself, and you're just in that symmetry. And beauty is really just another word for symmetry. So that's what's hood, bitch.